Ethan had lived on the orbital colony for 3 years. The colony circled a blue and white planet, shining like a jewel below. From the outside, the place looked like metal wrapped around the stars. From the inside, it was a mix of human homes, alien quarters, and long hallways that stretched for miles. The colony was busy during the day, filled with workers fixing machines, trading supplies, and keeping order. At night, however, the lights dimmed and the place felt quieter, as if the whole world was holding its breath. And Ethan worked as a technician. His days were full of wires, circuits, and metal panels. He liked the work, but he often felt alone. Most people on the colony lived with their families or shared quarters with close friends. Ethan had been placed in a small unit by himself. He thought it would always be that way, until the day he received a notice that someone new would be moving into his quarters. He frowned when he read the message on his screen. It said there had been a reshuffle in housing. A helper had been assigned to him. The notice did not explain more, but he knew the colony had been bringing in more aliens from nearby systems. The thought made him uneasy. He had met many kinds of aliens since arriving on the colony, but living with one was different. And that evening, when the door to his quarters opened, Ethan looked up and saw her. She stepped inside quietly, her eyes lowering as if she did not want to disturb him. Her skin was pale with a soft glow, and her hair was silver, falling like liquid light. She carried a small case in her hand. She was taller than most humans, but her movements were graceful and careful. "My name is Leora," she said in a soft voice. "I was told to stay here." And Ethan nodded. "I'm Ethan. This is, well, it's not much, but it's home." She looked around. The room was plain: a table, 2 chairs, a small couch, and a narrow kitchen. There was one main sleeping space divided by a thin wall. He wondered if she would mind the small size. To his surprise, she smiled, though it was faint. "Anna, this will do," she said. "Thank you for allowing me." Ethan felt awkward. He had not been asked. The colony had simply assigned her. Still, he could see she was trying to be polite. He gestured to the chair across from him. "You can sit, if you like." She placed her case down and sat. For a while, they were silent. Ethan did not know what to say. He had never shared his home before. He noticed that she kept her hands folded in her lap, as if she was trying not to take up space. She seemed calm, but he could see a kind of hidden tension in her shoulders. After a while, she asked, "Do you have rules for this place, customs I should follow?" And Ethan thought about it. "Not really, just don't touch my tools without asking. And, the water system can be tricky. Don't leave it running too long." She nodded seriously, as if his simple words were very important. "I will respect that." The next few days passed quietly. Leora rose early and often helped tidy the quarters. She moved gracefully, almost like she was floating. Ethan noticed she avoided crowds and did not speak much to others. When he asked why, she only said, "It is easier this way." At first, Ethan kept his distance. He thought of her as just a helper, but little by little he began to notice things. She always set aside a small portion of food for him when she cooked. She placed his tools back in perfect order after cleaning the table. When he returned tired from work, she offered tea, though she never drank it herself. There was something thoughtful in her actions. One evening, after finishing a long repair shift, Ethan found her sitting at the table with a small glowing book. The pages lit up as she touched them. He had never seen such a thing. He asked, "What are you reading?" She looked up, her silver eyes catching the dim light. "Stories from my home. Old ones. They are meant to remind us who we are." Anna Ethan sat across from her. "Can you read it out loud?" "Nanin." She hesitated, then nodded. Her voice was soft, carrying strange words that shaped pictures in his mind. She spoke of a mountain of glass, of a river that sang, of people who traveled by following the music of the stars. Ethan did not understand every word, but he felt the emotion. Her voice was gentle, almost sad. None, when she stopped, she closed the book quickly, as if afraid she had revealed too much. Ethan leaned back in his chair. That was beautiful. She lowered her eyes. Few humans would think so. Nan, I do, Ethan said simply. Something shifted between them after that. Leora began to share little pieces of her world. She explained that her people valued silence and careful movements because they believed sound carried memories. She showed him how her kind wrote messages not only with words but with light patterns. Ethan listened with growing interest. He shared things too. He told her about Earth, about how he grew up near rivers and forests. He showed her pictures on his screen of old Earth landscapes. She watched closely, as if she wanted to remember every detail. Yet Ethan noticed she avoided certain questions. Whenever he asked why she had come to the colony or what her past had been, she would grow quiet. Her eyes would turn distant, and she would change the subject. He decided not to push her. Still, a part of him wondered. And life on the colony was not always kind. People whispered when they saw Ethan walking with her in the halls. Some laughed. So you have an alien maid now? One man said, smirking. Ethan ignored them, but he saw how Leora's shoulders stiffened. That night she said softly, I am sorry if my presence causes you trouble. Nain and Ethan shook his head. It's not your fault. People talk. Let them. Her silver eyes softened. You are kind. Nan, it was a simple moment, but one that stayed in his thoughts long after. Nan, one night, as the lights dimmed and the colony grew quiet, Ethan noticed Leora standing by the window. She looked out at the planet below, her hand pressed against the glass. There was a sadness in her face he had not seen before. Ethan walked over. Do you miss your home? He asked gently. She did not look at him at first. Then she whispered, Every day. Nani waited, but she said no more. She only stood there, staring down at the world that was not hers. Now Ethan realized then that she was not just a helper, not just an alien assigned to his quarters. She carried something heavy inside her, something she could not yet share. He wanted to know, but he also knew trust took time. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought about her words, her silence, and her hidden sadness. The colony felt bigger than ever, filled with secrets behind closed doors. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt that his life was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. And the night passed quietly, but a sense of mystery lingered in the air. Ethan knew one thing for certain. Leora was not here by chance. There was a reason she had come, and someday he would learn it. For now, he could only wait, watching the stars through his window, while an alien maid with silver eyes lived just beyond the thin wall that separated their rooms. Ethan woke up the next morning to the smell of something warm in the air. When he stepped into the kitchen, he saw Leora standing by the small stove. She was quiet, her silver hair falling forward as she stirred a pot. Steam rose, carrying a sweet smell he did not recognize. Nan, you're cooking? He asked, surprised. She turned and gave a small nod. I found supplies in the storage. I thought you would be tired after yesterday. Ethan smiled faintly and sat at the table. You don't have to do that. And I know, she said softly. But I wanted to. When she placed a bowl before him, the food shimmered faintly as if light lived inside it. He hesitated, then tried a spoonful. It was unlike anything he had tasted, sweet and smooth, yet also rich and filling. He blinked. This is actually good. And her lips curved into the faintest smile. It is from my people. Food for strength. He ate slowly, watching her as she sat across from him. She did not eat. Instead, she rested her hands on the table, fingers folded neatly. And you don't want any? He asked. None, I already ate, she replied. I find joy in seeing someone else take strength from what I make. There was something unusual about the way she said it, almost as if she had learned it from long tradition. Ethan nodded, finishing his meal. He had many questions in his mind, but he kept them quiet for now. Later that evening, after his shift ended, Ethan returned to find Leora sitting with the glowing book again. This time she closed it quickly when she heard him enter. He raised an eyebrow. "None, you don't have to hide it," he said, setting down his bag. Her silver eyes lifted, calm but cautious. "It is not just a book. It is a record of my family. A history." He sat across from her, leaning forward. "Can you tell me?" She looked down at the glowing cover, her fingers brushing its surface. For a long moment she was silent, and Ethan thought she would refuse. But then she spoke in a low voice. "Enin, my father was a scientist, a maker of ideas and tools. He believed knowledge should be shared, not hidden by those in power. Many did not agree. They said he was dangerous, that he would weaken the order of our world." Ethan listened closely. Her voice carried weight, as if every word cost her something. "And one night there was an attack. I was taken away by people loyal to him, hidden among traitors, then sent far from home. I do not know what became of him, but I know why I was brought here. This colony is safe compared to my world. Here they thought no one would find me." Ethan sat back slowly. "So, you're not just a helper. You're hiding." Her gaze finally met his. "Yes, but not hiding from you." Ethan was quiet for a while. He thought about all the small things he had noticed, the way she avoided crowds, the way she stayed close to his quarters, the way her eyes sometimes looked distant. It all made sense now. "Anan, why tell me this?" he asked. "Annum, because you treat me kindly," she said simply. "And because I cannot carry it alone anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. "I won't tell anyone. You can trust me." Her shoulders eased, and for the first time since she arrived, he saw true relief in her face. The next days passed differently. Now that Ethan knew her secret, he began to see more layers of who she was. In the evenings, they talked quietly. Leora told him about the skies of her world, where twin suns rose together. She told him about glass mountains that sang when the wind touched them. Ethan, in turn, told her about earth forests, the smell of rain, and the sound of rivers rushing over stones. And one night, as they sat at the table, Ethan asked, "Do you ever want to go back?" Then her eyes lowered. "Yes, but it would be death if I tried now. Too many want me silenced." "You said your father believed knowledge should be shared. Do you believe the same?" And she looked at him, and her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "I believe voices should not be hidden. Even mine." Ethan felt a quiet respect grow inside him. She was not just surviving. She was holding on to something greater, something that mattered. The colony around them, however, was not so peaceful. Rumors spread faster than air through vents. Some workers whispered that Ethan's maid was more than she seemed. Others mocked him, saying he was wasting his time with someone who could never be one of them. Ethan ignored them, but one evening when they walked together down a quiet hallway, a man blocked their path. "Hey, technician," the man sneered. "Is this your new pet? Looks fancy. Bet she costs more than you make in a year." Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to hit the man, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Walk away," he said firmly. The man laughed and moved on, but the sting of the words lingered. Leora said nothing until they returned to the quarters. Then she looked at him and whispered, "I am sorry." "I bring you shame." No," Ethan said sharply, surprising even himself. "You don't. They don't know you. They don't understand. You have nothing to be sorry for." She studied him for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. Something unspoken passed between them that night. Something stronger than before. A few days later, while Ethan was repairing a broken panel in the corridor, he noticed a strange signal flicker across his handheld scanner. It was faint, but it did not match normal colony transmissions. When he returned home, he mentioned it to Leora. Her face grew pale. "What kind of signal?" she asked. He showed her the data. She studied it, her eyes narrowing. "This is not from the colony. This is a trace signal. Someone is searching. Sending out feelers." Ethan frowned. "For what?" "Henin, for me," she whispered. The room grew silent. Ethan felt a chill. He had known she was hiding, but now it was real. Someone out there was still hunting her, and if they were close enough to send signals, then the colony might not be safe after all. "Nenan, what do we do?" he asked quietly. Her silver eyes turned toward him, steady and calm despite the fear beneath. "We prepare, and we trust each other. And that night, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. His mind was full of questions, but one thought was clear. He was no longer just a technician living alone. He was the only one standing between her and the danger outside. He had promised to keep her secret, and now that promise might mean far more than he ever imagined. And the stars outside the window shone cold and bright. Somewhere beyond them, enemies were searching. But inside the small quarters, behind closed doors, a bond had begun to grow, fragile, quiet, but strong enough to face what was coming. The days after Ethan and Leora discovered the strange signal felt different. Every sound in the hallway, every flicker of a light, every unfamiliar face seemed heavier, as if shadows carried secrets. Ethan tried to keep calm, but he found himself checking the door twice at night and listening closely when voices passed outside their quarters. Nun Leora remained quiet most of the time, though Ethan noticed her silver eyes lingered longer at the window, scanning the black space beyond. She seemed to sense things he could not. One evening, when Ethan returned from his shift, she greeted him with her usual calm expression, but he could see tension beneath it. "And I need to show you something," she said softly. She led him to the table, where her glowing book lay open. This time she tapped the cover in a careful pattern. The book shifted, opening not to pages but to a hidden panel beneath. Inside rested a small device no larger than Ethan's hand. It shimmered with faint blue light. What is that?" Ethan asked, leaning closer. "This is from my father," she said. "It is a seeker. It listens for signals not meant to be heard." And Ethan blinked, "Like the one we saw?" "And yes, but stronger. It can find the source." She pressed her fingers gently against the device. Lines of light ran across its surface, forming shapes Ethan did not understand. She tilted it toward him. "Look." In and on the surface appeared a faint map of the colony, marked with shifting waves of blue. In the corner, a pulse of red flickered. "That is where the signal hides," she whispered. Ethan's chest tightened. The red pulse was not far from his own section of the colony. "They're close," Nan Leora nodded. "Closer than I hoped. Someone is searching, not far from us." Ethan rubbed his face with both hands. "So what do? We can't just sit here while they scan for you." Her gaze fixed on him, steady. "We stay quiet, we wait, and if they come, we move." Ethan did not like the sound of that, but deep down he knew she was right. They were not soldiers. They had no weapons, no protection. The only thing they had was caution. And that night, Ethan could not sleep. He heard every creak of the metal walls, every distant hum of machines. At one point he rose and stepped quietly to the main room. He found Leora sitting by the window again, her hands folded on her lap, her silver hair glowing in the dim light. "You're not sleeping either," he said. She looked at him with tired eyes. "Sleep does not come when danger is near." Ethan sat beside her. For a while they both watched the stars in silence. Then he asked, "Do you think they'll find you here?" Leora closed her eyes briefly. "If they are determined, yes. My kind does not give up easily. Those who hunt me believe I am a danger to their order. They will search until they succeed." And Ethan clenched his fists. "Then I'll make sure they don't." "Nen," she turned her head, studying him carefully. "You would risk yourself for me?" "And yes," he said simply. "I don't know why you were placed in my quarters, but you're here now. That makes you my responsibility, and more than that, you're my friend." Her silver eyes softened. For the first time, she reached out and touched his hand lightly. Her fingers were cool but gentle. "Then I am not alone." The next day, Ethan carried the small seeker device in his bag to study it during his breaks. At one point, while sitting in a quiet corner of the workshop, he activated it. The faint map appeared again, and the red pulse was still there, flickering stronger than before. Whoever was searching was not stopping. Later that evening, when he returned home, he found Leora preparing food again. He set the device on the table. "The signal's getting stronger." She looked at it and nodded. "They are narrowing their search," Ethan sighed. "I don't understand why the colony leaders haven't noticed. Don't they track outside transmissions?" "They may not care," Leora replied calmly. "Or perhaps they already know but do not wish to act." Ethan frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Money in politics rarely does," she said with a faint, bitter smile. The weight of her words pressed down on him. If she was right, then they could not rely on the colony for help. They truly were on their own. And on that night, as they sat at the table, Leora began telling him more about her past. She spoke of her father's work, machines that could heal wounds in minutes, crystals that stored whole libraries of knowledge, and ships that moved faster than light without burning fuel. But the leaders of her world feared his ideas. They wanted to control knowledge, not share it. My father said light should not be hidden under stone, she whispered. But those who rule believe power only belongs to them. Nathan shook his head. Sounds like they're afraid of losing control. And then, yes, she said softly. And they fear me because I carry his name. Nathan thought about that long after she went to rest. She was not just a runaway or a refugee. She was someone tied to ideas bigger than herself. Ideas that powerful people wanted to bury. And here she was, sitting across from him at the table, trusting him with truths that could change worlds. The next evening brought another sign of danger. Ethan was walking back from his shift when he noticed two figures standing at the far end of the hallway near his section. They wore simple colony uniforms, but their posture was sharp, alert. One of them held a small device that blinked faintly with green light. Ethan's stomach tightened. He slowed his steps, pretending not to notice, but his mind raced. Were they scanning? Were they looking for Leora? Now, when he entered his quarters, he locked the door quickly. Leora looked up, sensing his unease. What happened? And he told her about the figures. Her expression grew tight. They are here, she whispered. Closer than ever. And she opened the seeker again. The red pulse had grown into a deep glow, almost burning on the map. Ethan felt a chill. Inanan, they're on this section, he said quietly. Tananan, yes, she confirmed. They will come soon. Ethan sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. Then we need a plan. We can't just sit and wait. Leora studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. There are tunnels beneath this level. Maintenance paths. Few people know them well. If we must escape, that is where we will go. You know those tunnels? Ethan asked. And I have studied the maps while you were at work, she admitted. I hoped we would never need them. But now, and her voice trailed off. Ethan looked at her and saw not just fear, but determination. She was ready to fight for her survival, and he realized that he was ready too. And that night the colony was silent as usual, but Ethan felt the tension under the quiet. He and Leora packed a small bag with essentials, food, water, tools, and the seeker device. They did not know when they might need to run, but they wanted to be ready. Before resting, Ethan turned to her. We'll get through this, together. Her silver eyes met his, steady and calm. Together, she repeated. In the stars outside shone cold and distant, but inside the small quarters, a promise had been made. The hunters were closing in, the signals growing stronger, but Ethan and Leora were no longer waiting in silence. They were preparing. And behind the closed door of their quiet home, a fragile bond was turning into something unbreakable. The night came heavy and slow. Ethan lay awake on his narrow bed, staring at the dim light of the ceiling. The air felt thick, as if the whole colony was holding its breath. Leora was quiet in the next room, but he knew she was not sleeping either. Neither of them could rest, not with the knowledge that the hunters were near. Sometime in the middle of the night, a faint sound reached Ethan's ears. It was soft, like metal sliding against metal. He sat up quickly, heart racing. Then came another sound, a click, the kind that doors made when they were forced. Ethan leapt from his bed and rushed into the main room. And Leora was already there, standing in the shadows by the window. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She raised a finger to her lips, telling him to be silent. Ethan froze, his ears straining. The sound came again. Someone was at their door. He moved closer to her and whispered, "They've found us." Her face was calm, though her shoulders were tense. "We must leave, now." And before Ethan could reply, the door hissed and slid open. A sharp beam of light cut into the room. Figures stepped inside, tall and quick, their steps confident. They wore dark suits that shimmered faintly, built for stealth. Each carried a small weapon in hand. "And search," one of them said in a low voice. Ethan's pulse pounded. He glanced at Leora. She gave him a single nod, then touched the glowing device hidden in her sleeve. A faint wave of blue spread across the room, invisible to the intruders but visible to Ethan as a shimmer. The air seemed to bend around them, and suddenly, he felt wrapped in silence. The intruders moved carefully, scanning the room with their weapons. They passed close, so close that Ethan could hear the hiss of their suits. But their eyes slid past where he and Leora stood. The shimmer held, shielding them from sight. And Leora's hand trembled slightly as she held the device, but her face remained steady. She leaned close to Ethan and whispered, "Move." They crept toward the back wall where a maintenance hatch lay hidden beneath a small panel. Ethan knelt quickly, pulling at the cover. It came loose with a faint scrape, and he winced. One of the intruders paused, head turning. Ethan froze. His heart thudded loud in his chest. For a moment, he thought it was over. But then the intruder moved on, scanning another corner. Ethan pulled the hatch open wider, and he and Leora slipped inside. The passage was narrow and dark, barely wide enough to crawl through. He closed the hatch gently behind them, sealing out the faint light of the intruders. None. The tunnel smelled of dust and oil. Pipes lined the walls, humming with the pulse of the colony's machines. Ethan crawled ahead with Leora close behind. The space was tight, forcing them to move slowly. Every scrape of their hands on the metal floor echoed louder than he liked. After several long minutes, they reached a junction. Ethan stopped to catch his breath. Leora moved up beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She placed the seeker device on the floor. It lit up, showing a faint map of the tunnels. "And they will follow," she whispered. "We must keep moving." And Ethan nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Where do these tunnels lead?" "Down," she said, "to the lower levels. Few people go there. It may give us time." And they crawled on deeper into the maze. The further they went, the colder the air became. Pipes hissed with bursts of steam, and the hum of machines grew louder. Ethan's arms ached, but he kept moving, knowing the hunters could be close behind. After what felt like hours, they reached a larger chamber. It was filled with tall machines, their lights blinking faintly in the dark. The space was empty except for the constant hum of energy. Ethan stood and stretched, feeling relief after the long crawl. And Leora looked around carefully. "We can rest here for a short time," she said. "They will search above before they think to look below." And Ethan sat against a wall, breathing hard. "How long do you think we can keep this up?" And her eyes softened. "As long as we must." And for a while they sat in silence. Ethan studied her in the dim glow of the machines. She seemed calm, but he could see the strain in her face. She had been running her whole life, carrying secrets too heavy for one person. He felt a surge of determination. He could not let them take her. Not after everything she had shared with him. And the quiet did not last long. A sudden thud echoed through the tunnels, followed by voices. Ethan tensed. The hunters were close again, and Leora rose quickly, pulling the seeker device from her sleeve. It showed red pulses moving closer to their chamber. "They have found our trail," she whispered. Ethan stood, his fists clenching. "Then we fight." Her eyes widened. "Fight? You are human. You cannot face them." I'm not just going to sit here while they take you," Ethan said firmly. "We've run long enough." Leora studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well, but you must trust me." The voices drew nearer. The chamber filled with the sound of boots striking metal. Shadows moved in the tunnel entrances. Ethan felt his pulse race. He grabbed a metal rod lying near one of the machines, holding it like a weapon. The hunters entered, their suits glowing faintly. They raised their weapons, scanning the room. One of them pointed. "There!" Hani and Leora moved quickly. She pressed her hands together, and the small device flared with blue light. A wave of energy swept across the room. The hunters staggered, their suits sparking with interference. Ethan seized the moment, charging forward. He swung the rod with all his strength, striking one of the hunters in the arm. The weapon clattered to the floor. Another hunter turned and aimed at him, but Leora moved faster. She touched the device again, sending a flash of light that blinded the attacker. Ethan ducked, rolling to the side. His heart thundered, but his mind stayed clear. He was fighting not for himself, but for her. And the chamber filled with chaos, light, sound, the clash of metal. Ethan struck again, knocking another weapon aside. He was no soldier, but desperation gave him strength. Leora's calm voice guided him, calling warnings as the hunters closed in. At last, the hunters retreated, their suits sparking and their weapons failing under the constant waves of interference. They backed into the tunnels, their leader shouting, "We will find you. This is not over." Then they vanished into the dark, and silence returned. Ethan dropped the rod, his arms shaking. He was bruised, his breath ragged, but he was alive. He turned to Leora. She stood still, her silver eyes glowing faintly, the device dim in her hands. You saved us," he said, breathing hard. She shook her head. "We saved each other." And Ethan sat heavily on the floor, exhausted but filled with a strange pride. He had stood against trained hunters, something he never thought possible. And Leora had trusted him enough to fight by his side. For the first time he felt they were not just running, they were resisting. As the hum of the machines filled the silence, Ethan looked at her and said, "No matter what comes next, I'm with you." Her eyes softened and she gave a small nod. "And I with you." The night was not over. Danger still lurked in the tunnels. But for that moment, behind the closed doors of the colony's hidden passages, a truth was clear. A human and an alien had faced the storm together and survived. Morning came slow and quiet after the long night in the tunnels. Ethan and Leora were both exhausted, their muscles sore and their clothes damp from the cold. Yet despite the pain, there was a sense of relief. They had survived the hunter's attack, and for now they were safe. And Ethan stretched, rubbing his arms and shoulders. "We need a plan," he said softly. "We can't keep running forever." Leora nodded. "We need to move to a secure place, somewhere they cannot reach easily, somewhere we can think and prepare." He looked around the chamber, lit only by the faint blinking of the machines. "Do you have a place in mind?" She opened the seeker device. The blue map glowed faintly, showing the tunnels and hidden maintenance areas below the colony. "There is an old storage section," she said. "Few people go there. We can hide, and the tunnels will give us escape routes if they find us again." And Ethan nodded. "Then let's go." They moved carefully through the tunnels, the sounds of the colony above fading as they descended deeper. Ethan kept a close eye on the seeker, which showed no signs of the hunters following them, for now. Leora led the way, moving with quiet confidence, her senses sharp to the faintest noises. He realized again how different she was and yet how much he relied on her. Finally, they reached the storage area. It was vast and mostly empty, filled with old crates, machinery, and spare supplies. Dust covered everything and the air was still. It smelled of metal and oil. Ethan set down his bag, letting out a long breath. And this will do for now," Leora said, her eyes scanning the area. "We can rest here, gather our strength, and plan our next move." And then Ethan sank to the floor, leaning against a crate. "I can't believe we made it through last night," he said. "I was sure we were done for." She knelt beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You were brave. I underestimated human courage," and he laughed weakly. "I was scared out of my mind. I didn't want anything to happen to you." Nan Leora's silver eyes softened. "And you saved me. You gave me a chance. That is more than most humans would do." They rested in the storage area for hours. Leora prepared a simple meal from some of the supplies they found in crates. It was plain but nourishing. They ate quietly, sharing the small space in companionable silence. As night fell again, Ethan and Leora sat near the glowing device. The red pulse had disappeared for now, but they knew it would return. "We can't stay hidden forever," Ethan said. "At some point we have to confront this, or find a way off the colony." Leora nodded. "Yes, but we will not act recklessly. The hunters are clever, and they will not give up easily. We must be smart." They spent the next few days in the storage area, planning and preparing. Ethan repaired a small comm device he had found, hoping to reach allies or warn the colony quietly if needed. Leora shared more of her knowledge, teaching him patterns of movement and ways to remain undetected. Their bond grew stronger with each passing hour. They were no longer just a human and an alien hiding in fear. They were partners, united by trust and necessity. One day, while exploring the storage area, Ethan found a hidden panel behind a stack of crates. Inside was a small shuttle, old but functional. "Leora," he said, excitement in his voice. "If we can get this working, we could leave the colony. Get far away, safe." And she examined it carefully, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "Yes, it is possible. But it will take time, and they may be watching." And together they worked on the shuttle. Ethan used his technical skills to repair circuits and engines. Leora provided knowledge of advanced systems, guiding him through processes he had never learned. Slowly, the shuttle came back to life, humming faintly as power returned to its systems. During their work, they talked quietly, sharing dreams and fears. Ethan spoke of Earth, of forests and rivers he missed. Leora spoke of her world, of skies with twin suns and mountains that sang. Their stories built a bridge between their worlds, and Ethan realized he cared for her more than he could explain. And finally, after long days and nights, the shuttle was ready. They tested its systems carefully, making sure it could lift off quietly and avoid detection. Leora used the seeker device to check for signals, confirming that no hunters were near. The night they chose to leave, the colony was quiet. Ethan and Leora boarded the shuttle, hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. The engines hummed softly, a comforting sound in the darkness. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, looking at her. And she nodded. "I trust you." He smiled faintly. "Then let's go." The shuttle lifted silently, gliding through the tunnels and out into the open space above the colony. Stars stretched endlessly around them, and Ethan felt a thrill of freedom. They were leaving the place that had been dangerous, leaving behind those who hunted her. But more importantly, they were together. As they flew through space, Leora touched his hand gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "For trusting me, for fighting with me, for being here." Ethan squeezed her hand. "No, thank you. For trusting me, for letting me be here." They sat in quiet, watching the stars pass. The universe was vast and unknown, but for the first time it felt full of possibility, rather than fear. Together they could face whatever came next. After hours of flight, they found a quiet asteroid, rich with caves and hidden tunnels. It would serve as a temporary refuge while they planned their next steps. Ethan and Leora landed the shuttle carefully, exploring the small caves that would become their home. For the first time in a long while, they felt safe. In the quiet of the asteroid caves, Ethan set up a small recording device. He wanted to capture their story, not for fame, not for proof, but as a memory, a reminder of what they had survived and the bond that had grown between them. He spoke softly into the recorder, recounting the events of the past nights, the dangers, the courage, and the trust they had built. Leora listened quietly, sitting beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the equipment. And when he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is our story," she said. "No one else needs to know. Some truths are too rare to share." Ethan nodded. "Yes, but it is ours." They sat together in the soft glow of the recording device, silent except for the hum of the shuttle's systems in the background. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, but inside there was warmth, trust, and a bond that would not be broken. They had faced hunters, danger, and the unknown, and they had survived. And now together, they could look forward to a future not defined by fear, but by choice, by loyalty, and by the quiet strength of a human and an alien who had found each other behind closed doors.